Oh, we are back again with James Joyce's short story, Araby. We've been sort of working through this story as a way to think about literary analysis and the different things that you look at. This is the kind of framework I sort of made up. Um, we're on our bottom level of literary techniques and devices. Last time we talked about tone versus mood, and this time we're talking about irony. This is one of the hardest things for you to identify because if it's not straight up sarcasm, it's really difficult to see that an author is trying to be ironic. So verbal irony, like I said earlier, is usually sarcasm, but it's when someone says one thing but means another. Situational irony is when you expect one thing to happen, but something else happens instead. While that's, common, the one that we really want to pay attention to for this story especially is dramatic irony. And this is where the audience knows something that the characters do not, or the audience is clued into something about the actual story itself, or we can kind of see where it's going, but we know that the characters don't. It's almost like when you can see the train heading to, in like the Bugs Bunny cartoons and things like that, where the bridge is out and you can see the train going and you know it's going to go off the tracks, but the characters inside the train don't. And you just want to be like, oh my God, stop, no. That's dramatic irony. That one I would say is one of the ones that really gets you the most because you don't often realize that there's irony happening, or it's maybe being played down. Situational irony does happen, but it's going to be more common in stories like this if it's like a twist or something like that, or you're expecting things to work out well and they don't, things like that. It's a little bit less important for what we're going for today, which is dramatic irony. Okay, so last time we left off, our main character, our protagonist, is still wanting to go to the bazaar because Megan's sister has said that she wants to go and she can't. And so he's finally trying to actually get there. So he says, when I came downstairs again, I found Mrs. Mercer sitting at the fire. She was an old, garrulous woman, a pawnbroker's widow, who collected used stamps for some pious purpose. I had to endure the gossip of the tea table. The meal was prolonged beyond an hour, and still my uncle did not come. Mrs. Mercer stood up to go. She was sorry she couldn't wait any longer, but it was after 8 o'clock, and she did not like to be out late, as the night air was bad for her. When she had gone, I began to walk up and down the room, clenching my fists, and my aunt said, I'm afraid you might put off your bazaar for this night of our Lord. Remember, he really wants to go to the bazaar. He can't go because he doesn't have any money and he needs his uncle's permission. At 9 o'clock, he's been waiting so long. At 9 o'clock, I heard my uncle's latchkey in the hall door. I heard him talking to himself and heard the hall stand rocking when it had received the weight of his overcoat. I could interpret these signs. Now, what signs is he talking about? This isn't really irony here so much as understatement, which is another important thing, where the author isn't really telling us, but we're getting all the signs just like he is. So it's 9 o'clock when his uncle finally gets home. He's mumbling to himself in the hallway, and he puts his overcoat so harshly onto the hall stand that he hears it rocking. He's kind of bumbling into the house, and it's this late. It's probably because he's bumbling in drunk. And of course, if your child is familiar with this, like the protagonist is, he says, well, I could interpret these signs. I already knew what was going on. When he was midway through his dinner, I asked him to give me the money to go to the bazaar. He had forgotten. Maybe, possibly, a symptom of his drinking. People are in bed and after their first sleep now, he said. I did not smile. My aunt said to him energetically, can't you give him the money and let him go? You've kept him late enough as it is. My uncle said he was very sorry he had forgotten. He said he believed in the old saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. He asked me where I was going, and when I told him a second time, he asked me, did I know the Arab's farewell to his steed? When I left the kitchen, he was about to recite the opening lines of the piece to my aunt. Interesting, he's bringing up some other work here. That's an allusion, but here it's actually part of the plot. So that's why I'm going to kind of, this is not part of the original text, so you wouldn't have this in the actual story, but I'm going to pull up these last lines here for you. This would have been a poem that would have been well known to James Joyce's audience at the time, which is why he can use it here. So The Arab's Farewell to His Steed by Carolyn Norton, who was actually at the time married to quite an important politician and was having an affair with the British ambassador to Ireland. So there's a little bit of political maybe irony here too. So here's the last lines. Who said that I had given thee up? Who said that thou was sold? 'Tis false, my Arab steed. I fling them back their gold. Thus I leapt upon thy back and scattered the distant plains. Away, who overtakes us now shall claim thee for his pains. It's really interesting. We have to wonder why is it this poem that the uncle is quoting? We're going to come back to it. I held a florin in my hand as I strode down Buckingham Street towards the station. The sight of the streets thronged with buyers and glaring with gas recalled to me the purpose of my journey. I took my seat in the third-class carriage of a deserted train. After an intolerable delay, the train moved out of the station slowly. It crept onward among ruinous houses and over the twinkling river. At the Westland Row station, a crowd of people pressed to the carriage doors, but the porters moved them back, saying that it was a special train for the bazaar. I remained alone in the bare carriage. In a few minutes, the train drew up beside an improvised wooden platform. I passed out onto the road and saw by the lighted dial of a clock that it was 10 minutes to 10. In front of me was a large building which displayed the magical name. So he's almost on this, enchanted journey here. Like he himself is the knight who's on this quest, to finally get there. But he's been given a florin, which you may have no context for, but that is a lot of money to give to a young boy. So if we go back to our poem here, and he says, oh no, who said that I had given you up? Who said that you were sold? It's false. I fling them back their gold. I leap upon my back and scatter thee to the plains. Whoever takes us now shall claim thee for his pains. His uncle has foolishly given him too much money. And we, as the audience, should see a little bit of irony here. He's given him a florin, and we know he's going to use that money foolishly. He is not going to use that money wisely if he uses it. So there is a bit of an irony here in that he's been given such a vast amount of money. And we might see a dramatic situation here of like, oh no, he's going to spend it all. He's not going to spend it good at all. But also there's a double irony here of this poem of making a trade, making a deal, making an exchange, and then immediately regretting it and wishing you could take it back, like in this poem. Making a bad choice, making a judgment call that's wrong, and wishing you could take it back. And so that is, what his uncle is sort of quoting here when he says, oh, where are you going? Oh, you're going to that bazaar. And he says, he connects the term, he's going to the Araby, and then he connects it to the Arab's farewell to a steed. But really, what's happening here is we're seeing the irony. There's going to be a trade that's made, or possibly made, and there's gonna be a regret. There's gonna be a regret. There's gonna be a wish that whatever has happened, whatever this interaction is, that he wishes he could undo it. So we had to sort of have some foreshadowing here, and we sort of know that something's going to go wrong. And we also have dramatic irony, that we know that this character's going, he thinks it's going to be great, but we know he's heading for disaster. We know that he's heading for disaster here. And so that's where the irony might come in. Of course, you're going to need to read to the end of the story to find out if it really is ironic or not. But at this point in time, we are being set up for a dramatically ironic situation. So we're going to come back next time, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some literary choices that are being made in this story.